Back at it again. I guess I can push this back. Back at it again. Yesterday I was recording, and 15 minutes in, the camera stopped. So, you know, I was talking to a dead camera, but can't cry over spilled milk. But old school saying, right? Old school saying, new topic. That's what we're going to talk about, crying over spilled milk. They say you can't cry over spilled milk, and in reality, I think you can. I actually think that you should. Now, to put it in context, I'm not saying actually cry. If you feel that way, definitely. However, what I'm saying is, I think that it's important to get closure, and so that's the place that I'm coming from. I'm coming from a place of finding closure, getting closure. Hold on. All right, back. So I'm back. At least I got my seatbelt on, right? All right. You cannot cry over spilled milk. I had to stop and get me a bite to eat because I hadn't ate today. But I think that everybody needs closure. Everybody needs closure on things, right? Crying over spilled milk. Anytime you suffer a loss, now loss doesn't necessarily have to be you lost a person. You could have lost a deal that you were very well invested in. You could have lost a friendship, a relationship, several things that fall into that category that could have sentimental value, could have meaning. They could be very important to you. Something that's life-changing, such as an opportunity, maybe a job opportunity, an opportunity to establish a business or a partnership, some type of, lucrative situation. And of course, yeah, it can be a loss of a loved one or a family member, but it could even be a mistake that you foresaw that there was the potential for that mistake, a mental mistake where it caught you off guard. You could be blindsided. In those situations, you have to be able to get past them, and you have to be able to deal with it. One of the things that I've seen in working with the youth, young men, young women, a lot of young minority males, all right, especially little brothers, have a hard time dealing with rejection, disappointment, failure, not meeting, and this goes across the board with everybody that I've seen, not meeting some standard that is really unrealistic, trying to keep up with someone that, or something, or some identity, or some idea that is really not realistic in nature. Maybe it's something that's imposed on them by friends, or something that they found or discovered via social media, some new thing, I don't know. Maybe it's, rejection from a, potential relationship situation where they don't know how to deal with it. I've seen where guys approach girls and the girls don't want anything to do with them, And so yeah, they get rejected by the girl, and it just turns haywire. You know, my daughter was approached by a guy inside of the grocery store. Now, the situation is, it wasn't a great situation. My daughter's, you know, she's a teenager, she's young, and some 30, 40-year-old, my son, my youngest son says, you know, he's got crows, whatever the things around his eyes, and he says he looked like he was in his 40s. So that's an issue in and of itself. But one of the things that she told me when I asked her why she didn't just walk away, she said that she was worried that he would do something to her because she rejected him. So of course, as a father, that pisses me off, that my daughter was made to feel that way. At the same time, though, what she's speaking is a reality. What I've come to find is that a lot of people have a hard time dealing with rejection, being turned down. At some point in life, I guess, maybe they weren't taught how to deal with rejection. Or, you know, guys are always taught, you know, not to cry, be tough, stick your chest out, things like that. I was working in corporate America several years ago, and I had a guy who ultimately had promoted to where I was promoting my way out of there. He was promoting his way in to that level. And so for a brief time period, we were peers. And I remember him telling me how he had his backside handed to him by leadership. Leadership came down, flew in town, and sort of, you know, put him on the spot where he had to sort of represent his area of the business and to them, and he had to give an account for things that were not where they should be, and, you know, plans that were in place to get to this place. Well, he didn't do a real good job of that, and so he had it handed to him. And so he told me about it. Now, this dude's a big old dude, bigger than me, big guy, right? But young guy, grew up with his dad, mom and dad in the house. Dad, from what I've learned, very active and involved in his life, just like I am with my kids. You know, dad taught him early on, you know, a man, you can cry. You have emotions just like everyone else, and you have to handle those emotions. So he told me that, you know, he really felt horrible, like it kicked his butt. They kicked his butt, leadership. And so he said that well, after they left, you know, he had to take a moment. He went out to his car, you know, drove and pulled over somewhere, and he said that he just bawled out. He just cried, and he had to let it out because, you know, he really felt horrible. And he said that he regrouped, came back, and he knew he had to come back, bounce back strong, but he needed to get past that, and that was the way he got past it. And so I commended him for that, because one, most guys aren't going to share that. Most guys aren't going to share that. Two, he had a way of dealing with those emotions he was feeling. And I will tell you, I know for a fact he did bounce back strong, because I ended up being one of the ones who had to assess his bounce back, and where his business was, and give an account for where his business was. And, you know, I wasn't being all that nice about it, because ultimately his business affects my business. So there's sort of a dotted line connection there. But, you know, when you're dealing with disappointment and you're dealing with frustration and you're in the midst of it, and it's hard to process and hard to navigate out of it, if you don't navigate out of it, you can become stagnant and stuck. And then you become stuck in this place where you're frustrated all the time. You become cynical, pessimistic, because you can't see the other side. You can't see the light on the other side. You can't see that through these obstacles, through this rejection, through this failure, through this mistake, You will be better if you can fully process this and work your way through it. Everybody's got their own ways of going about that. You know, I don't think that two people are exactly alike in how they deal with it. Could be. However, I think our upbringing has a lot to do with how we deal with issues. And so here's what I'd say. One of the most important things I think anyone can do is pause. Pause. Take a moment to process the issue and fully think through it. Go through a bunch of questions, like a cost benefit analysis, I guess, you know, or whatever strategy you can use. However, you got to get to a point where you're literally processing and understanding the impact that the issue is having, because unless the world caught on fire, it ain't over, right? I'm going to say this, and a lot of people are going to really hate what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's the reality. And it frustrates me too, because, you know, I've suffered through it. But you can have a person who went out and killed somebody go to court and spend the rest of their life in prison and be taken care of for the rest of their lives. So they ended the world for someone else who had no choice. Or maybe they did. But that person, the perpetrator of that crime, when caught, they could end up getting life in prison. Imagine taking care of someone. Now, granted, their freedoms are taken away. But even in that situation, they eventually get to a point where they learn how to live in that environment. So, yes, they're forced to. But guess what? It's crazy how life works, because oftentimes we think that life is supposed to be one way. A lot of times, you know, life is supposed to be one way. You talk to some of these young kids, they think that life is supposed to go this way because social media says it's supposed to go this way, or they're entitled to this, or and a lot of times they won't say they're entitled to this. It's just the behaviors that align with entitlement, or the sense of entitlement. They will miss that life lesson where you're taught that, you know, life is gonna beat the hell out of you. I mean, it's gonna punch you, it's gonna kick you, it's gonna throw you around. Life is a bully. It's almost like, you know, if you're in boxing and you have a sparring partner who happens to be extremely aggressive and fast and strong, right? You're gonna fight. But the whole purpose of you sparring is to get you better. It's to get you better. Life is preparing you for something. Life is preparing you for something. So when you battle through rejection and you come out of it on the other side, having gone through processing it, understanding it, really getting to a point where you are accepting of whatever the loss was, the mistake was, the obstacle, the challenge, whatever it was, but you've gotten to a point where you've accepted it. You've learned from it. You know what to do differently the next time. You know how you will approach it. You are able to see whatever challenge or whatever it was that initiated that process of getting to the loss. or you saw it before the mistake happened, before it occurred, where you could make a decision to course correct. What's interesting about that situation, when you do course correct, guess what could potentially happen? Another mistake could occur. That's life. Guys, you avoid this girl because you see some things about her. You like her all this time. You've established a relationship with her. You're going to go after her, right? But this time you reject it. You get past it. You get over it. You meet someone else. But this time you see the red flags. And you see the red flags and you're like, nah, I'm not gonna do it. So you decide to be friends, but then she comes on to you. And then you give in. And in giving in, you make another mistake. It was different this time because you saw things, but she came after you. You didn't go with your gut. It's amazing how gut works. So now this next time around, no rush. You take your time. You read the signs. You acknowledge the signs. You accept the signs. You get to know the person. And as you get to know the person, you identify something that's very interesting. The common denominator in every single one of those situations was you. It was not the other person. Even if the other person did have flaws, you're still the common denominator. Toxic people they tend not to realize that they are the ones that are toxic. If you're struggling to deal with something and you never resolve it or you never figure out how to get through it, in every situation, if you find yourself being the one that's hurt or with at a disadvantage or conflicted, it might be because you need to spend more time working on yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Work on yourself. Why not? Best thing you can do is work on yourself. The best thing you can do is work on yourself. Get to know yourself. Understand why you make certain decisions. Pay attention to your thoughts. Try to figure out or try to determine whether or not the thoughts that you're having regarding a particular situation are distorted. Because if you have an upbringing where you didn't have the support, you never learned how to deal with rejection, you don't understand failure, you don't understand how to turn a negative into a positive, make lemonade out of lemons, or however that statement goes, right? You don't know how to turn these awful, dreadful situations into amazing experiences. You don't know how to pull the positive out of a negative. You don't know how to process problems. Identify behaviors that are not building you up, adding to your life. You know, I can tell you, go read as many books as you want to, and reading helps. I believe that reading helps. I'll read, listen to audiobooks, all of that. But I think that what is most effective is the life experience. I think life experience is what's most effective. Relationships. Having accountability partners. People that you can talk to who, you know, when you say or do something and they're with you, they can identify those things, right? And I'm not talking about people who will take that opportunity to take a shot at you. You don't want them clowns around. Keep those clowns away from you. Get with some people that they're going to be straight up with you. You could be straight up with them. That's what you need. So like I said in the beginning, it's okay to cry over spilled milk, but that doesn't mean you dwell on it. Nah, you can't dwell on it. You got to get closure, but remember, you got to learn from it. You got to grow from it. The closure enables you to sort of go through the process of getting past it all, right? Getting past it all. Building from that place. Growing from the circumstance. That's important. That's what's important. How can you be the best you if you haven't figured you out? I find that almost impossible to do. How can you be the best you if you don't even know you? You think you know you. You think you know you. So here's what I say. Cry over spilled milk. Just don't cry for long. Get over it. Find resolve. And get there as fast as you can. As fast as you can. What's the expression? Fail forward. Get there as fast as you can. Because you don't get any of that time back. None of it. With every message that I say on here, wow. With every message, I'm talking to me as much as I'm talking to you. Be yourself. Don't try to be someone else. Be the best version of yourself. It takes work. We think we know the best versions of ourselves. That takes time. You grow every day, hopefully. So parts of you, how you think, how you go about life, pieces of that change all the time. So, what I say is, get to work. Get to work.